in a display of hubris, practically unrivaled perhaps in television history. The rest, I can't come up with an equivalent example off the top of my head in my entire goddamn TV watching time, frankly. The Last of Us, Episode 9 of Season 1, it selects to undermine the entire purpose of its own existence, of the trip, of the Fireflies, of the universe being in chaos in general. It is a sweeping defeat of the entire purpose of the TV show. And best of all, it's a retcon. They swept the legs out from beneath themselves on purpose.
There is no reason to watch the show after 5 minutes of that last episode.
So
at all.
to explain, right? We are introduced to yet another flashback, which will last for 10 minutes of this 40-minute episode, where they need to go through so many plot points, and they don't, by the way, they skip most of them, where we see Ellie's mother being chased by a little zombie, and she gets bitten just as Ellie is born. They then cut the cord, but after she's been bitten, so Ellie is already infected with the cordyceps. This is a complete retcon, and it, quote-unquote, explains why Ellie is immune, because she has mushroom inside of her as well. Then, Black Woman, the leader of the Fireflies, comes, sees this, and takes the baby. And then, presumably, gives the baby to Fedra afterwards. That's never explained. How the hell the baby ended up with Fedra?
Yeah, that's something they never elaborate. I mean, she mentions in a throwaway scene in the beginning episode, or in the first or second episode, that she, to Ellie, like, we sent you to Fedra because we didn't know what to do with you. It's like, why would you do that? Like, she's going to be trained, indoctrinated, and brainwashed by Fedra now. Or so you believe.
Even if you have no idea she's immune, which you wouldn't, fair enough, why would... This is like, okay, the Jewish resistance in Nazi-controlled Europe is like, we just can't care for this child. Give her to the Hitler Youth. Why?
Because that's what happened in the video game. The problem is the whole plot has become so convoluted because of Neil Druckmann's retconning.
Right. Before we get to that, I want to explain why this undermines everything. Because the Fireflies know she's immune. That's why they set up on the trip. That's why they give her to Joel. They know she's immune. Black Lady was there both times. She knows why Ellie is immune. It's not difficult. Because her mother says, oh, I was totally, I cut the cord before I was bitten. And then she says it again to emphasize it. It clearly suggesting that Black Lady knows she is lying. She knows why Ellie is immune. It's because her mother was bitten right before she gave birth. This means the Fireflies knows how to replicate Ellie. They don't need her. They don't need to go, oh, Joel, you're my only hope. Only you can do this because I am wounded. None of that is required. They don't need Ellie. They don't need Joel to go on a trip. They don't need their fancy hospital center. They've had the ability to reproduce this as a major group with cells all across America, apparently, at the very least the coast. They could literally just get women pregnant, wait until they're about to give birth in labor, and have them infected. Voila, you have an Ellie.
Yep, they can just manufacture them. There's no reason to take such a risk and use so many resources to get Ellie, because it's just a waste of time. And not only that, but you could just pump these things out like crazy. Like, yeah, you'd have to lose like a female member every time you do it, and the incubation time would be about 9 months on average. But still, why bother? Why go through the hassle of uncertainty of waiting for somebody when you could just do it yourself and there's no security leaks? You don't have to rely on anyone else for help.
Yeah,
and like internally.
This would still be a horrible process, don't get me wrong. It would be unethical, etc. It would still take a long time. But it doesn't matter. Like, they're risking everything to get Ellie out. They're blowing an entire cell to do this. They're occupying this hospital. They've got all of the guards. They lost half of their members moving cross-country because it was that dangerous. None of this had to happen. None of this was required. They know how to recreate Ellie.
Yep. Everything is pointless. This invalidates the reason for the entire game's existence, for the entire story to begin. There's no reason for it.
And it also, they antagonize Joel, which obviously they would know they would do, because of a ridiculous theory as well. The show tries desperately, because we praised it to begin with, that it wasn't trying to represent the Fireflies as the obvious good guys, because it's the current year and they're communist, and you gotta do that. This episode turns this entirely on its head. The Fireflies are depicted as just really nice guys. You're supposed to sympathize with them. When they're getting killed, you hear violin music. Feel bad.
It's sad.
For them.
And he's like executing them as they're starting, like, please, no.
Yep, they're putting up their hands and Joel just shoots them in a final action sequence. And all of this is, so why do they need to kill Ellie? Because in the game, apparently, as I've been told, they had tried this before, and every time they built up more data. Like, they had a fundamental piece of evidence telling them that, okay, this is possible, we just need to know more. Okay, that means they have got a science foundation. They know that it's a possibility, they just don't have all of the data. And every time they've done it, they've gathered more data, and they've gotten more and more convinced about their conclusion that yes, there is the possibility of a cure. Now, whether there was one or wasn't is one of the insecurity elements, fine. Here, they've got none of that. The entire reason for needing to bust Ellie's brain open is because they have a theory that the mushroom in her brain is totally speaking with all of the other mushrooms and making them not mushroom her.
Yep. That is unironically what they're going for here.
It's not based on testing. At least they don't mention it. It's not based on like a biological testing of her blood or a CT scan or anything. They're like, why don't she turn mushroom? Why'd she have mushroom in head? Head mushroom, speak to other mushroom. So, only one mushroom, Kyle. There may only be one.
They established that in the beginning too, because this is foreshadowed in the retcon about the mushroom retcon, where it's like the mushrooms communicate via a network of underground cordyceps that tunnel through the planet. It's like, okay.
Which, again, that also means, though, that if this is true, the shrooms shouldn't attack Ellie, because they recognize her as fellow shroom.
Yep, except for the fact that they do attack her, so the whole thing comes unraveled.
Oh, God.
Again.
The rabbit hole is even deeper, because you're right, the cordyceps communicate with each other. They communicate to move out of the sun. They can communicate, at least to some degree, over distances. There is no reason why one mushroom should look at Ellie and go, food, when all they should see is mushroom.
A fellow mushroom, yep.
Because obviously the shrooms can recognize each other, because they don't attack each other.
Yep, otherwise the infected would just be all over each other. It's the reason and justification is why the infected are always on like a singular side. They're never fighting each other or infighting. And that completely unravels here because they go after Ellie multiple times in the show and in the video games.
Like, she's
means
bitten
that
what,
none
like
of this matters.
Twice? 3 times?
3 times if I recall correctly.
And again, the whole spiel here that the Fireflies are the good guys, because there's one scene where a black woman comes out against Joel and she's got a drop on him, she's got a gun on him, and it is not too late. I know you killed like 30 of my friends and the brain surgeon that was supposed to fix Ellie, but we could totally do this. And she puts her gun away.
You.
And okay, this woman too. This woman has been shown to be ruthless throughout this entire show. She has no real personal attachment to Joel. There's no reason whatsoever why she wouldn't simply shoot him in the back. She has the perfect drop on him.
Yet she doesn't. Because she needs to be the good guy. Because she's the real hero. Because in the retcon, Marlene is the one who takes Ellie from basically her best friend, and she's the hero. Because she says in a scene when Joel's like, you don't understand like what she means to me. She's like, I do. I know better than you. Because I am a woman. And I know more than you, Joel.
And that's the thing, too, because they try to make it so that she cares about Ellie just as much, but she's willing to make the sacrifice. There's even a scene where she has a tear on her cheek, like, oh, I don't want to do this, but I am going to do it.
I'm going to kill this child.
Like, bullshit. Because, again, if it was like in the game, and they knew, like, they were one kid away, and they'd have the cure, okay, fine. I could theorize that, okay, fine, no, greater good. You're pretty damn sure that this is the last one. Fair enough. No. All they have is the theory that the mushroom in her head speaks to the mushrooms that invade her body, which again is defeated by the fact that all of the other shrooms goddamn attack her. And they know that because the reason why they know she's immune is because she was goddamn bit by a mushroom.
Yep.
Oh,
It completely invalidates everything. It goes to further prove that these writers have inherited a story that they didn't create, that they didn't earn, and they're just mucking about with the plot, undermining every sequence. They've undermined Joel. They've character assassinated Joel twice in this show.
Oh yeah.
And they've made him out to be just weak. He's a bad guy. He's a coward. He's a little baby, and he's a psychopathic murderer white man.
So the show also confirms, quote unquote, that Joel tried to commit suicide. I don't know. Neither Dev or Kyle seem to recognize that from the game.
In the game, they sort of it alludes that it might have happened, but it keeps up in the air so that you don't quite know. It's one of those things like it never clarifies in the game.
Right. Whereas here, he just outright states it. That
I tried to kill myself.
Yep, he pointed a gun at his head and then he flinched because, you can move remarkably faster than a bullet.
It's the guy flinched, not from the impact of the bullet, but from the writing that says so in the script.
Like again, and this undermines him again because they've already broken him in body when he has a sudden onset pussyitis and has to bend over and grab his chest like, oh, I'm so worried about Ellie being eaten by pedophiles or something. Oh. And now they've broken him in spirit too, because he's already given up once and he's already tried to commit suicide once.
Yep. You know what's funny about that pussyitis thing? It disappeared after that scene, after they character assassinated him, because they didn't need to do it anymore.
Yeah, because that was all it was. It was a character assassination moment to undermine his role as the competent character. Once they had done that, there was no reason for the sudden onset pussyitis anymore, which was then cured.
Yep, it was not there. Now we all understand that Joel is weak and helpless, and basically it's a miracle he even is able to do anything, honestly.
It is
this show
kind of terrible.
This show went from like fairly just mediocre to like mediocre boring to mediocre but kind of bad to mediocre really bad to holy crap. And it was very interesting to see because it wasn't instant. It was gradual. It was the downward trend as they try to justify, because all these retcons and justifications exists to justify Neil Druckmann's Last of Us Part 2. So he needs to destroy what remains of the lore in order to justify the butchering that was The Last of Us Part 2.
And again, these two retcons put each one of these are bad in and of itself. The mushroom thing doesn't make any sense and undermines the tension because it gets rid of the masks and it means they can walk around without a care in the world. And it turns the zombie show into not a zombie show at all. Like, the zombies have been the least threat of everything. In fact, the zombies saved them from the humans at one point here.
Yep, the zombies are just window dressing in this show. And I'm so sick of shows doing that. Oh, it's a zombie show? Oh, there's some zombies in the background. Look, you hear them rare. What do you want?
Yep.
That's just not fun. Like, where's the zombies?
And that in and of itself was okay. It's an inferior decision, but it's not that bad. But taken with the retcon of this episode, the entire setting no longer makes sense. The entire struggle no longer makes sense. The characters' trials and tribulations no longer make sense. None of this needed to happen, and it happened only because script writers said so.
Yep. Because they need to make it match up with the original game that built this IP to begin with. Because this is the IP that they're riding the coattails of. And now they're attempting, just like the cordyceps as a parasitic, life form, they're basically rewriting everything and changing things to fit their needs.
It is a terrible... God, again, like, I am genuinely actually struggling to remember an equivalent example of this. Like,
it's never really happened.
No, this is Death Note level shit, okay?
Oh,
this is that season that should not be spoken of level stuff. That just ruins literally everything that comes before it.
Yeah. It is something we haven't seen in a long time. At least not me personally, where you have a series that just completely undermines everything fundamentally of what makes the setting what it is, to the point where it's no longer recognizable even.
Nope, terrible. Again, and the worst part too is it's retcons. It is stuff they elected to add in retrospectively that shot themselves in the foot to such a degree that it's oof.
Pain.
I hate
hurts.
it. I hate it so much because none of this had any point. None of this had any reason for existence. Like, this entire thing was pointless.
Yep, we watched 9 episodes, basically almost 9 hours of our lives, wasted on a show that's entire story and premise and characters didn't matter. None of it needed to happen. In fact, it makes no sense as to why anything happens, honestly. Like, why Ellie's even sought after to begin with is beyond me.
Awful, 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 awful television.